Hi, hello, I'm Sam Harris and I read, review and discuss fantasy and science fiction books. And today we are going to be reviewing the third book in the deck collection series by Andrew Givler, which is Star Summit. This review is going to be completely non-spoiler, so if you have not read Star Summit, then you can absolutely read this without any issues. The one thing that I will say is that it'll include setup spoilers. So if you have not read the first two books in the series, there may be elements of those books. And in fact, I think to talk about some of the stuff that happens in this book as kind of framing Star Summit, you do have to fairly in-depth discuss the events of Dandelion Audit and some of the stuff from Soul Fraud. So if you haven't read those two books, you may want to skip this video, or like it, comment down below that you love my videos and you're really excited to read the deck collection, and just leave it playing on mute for Google, for the stats, share it with a few friends, you know, all the good stuff. You don't have to do that. Anyway, so where do we start with Star Summit? So at the end of Dandelion Audit, a few big kind of lifestyle changes have hit Matthew. So in book one of deck collection, in Soul Fraud, Matthew is living with his roommate, mooching off of him for rent. He's constantly accosted by his roommate's girlfriend, who has been magicked to fall in love with him, and he's in general not having the greatest home life. However, in Dandelion Audit, we're in a completely different place. So Matthew has now become engaged to a princess of the Fae. He has come into multiple millions of dollars, and due to having the multiple millions of dollars, he's moved out and he's living in a cool Art Deco beach house with his best friend Alex, who is a Nephilim, and not the previous best friend he was mooching off of, because well, he wants to get away from Violet, who's kind of in love with him, kind of cursed to be in love with him. I still have my theories. I mean, I talked about it in the last episode, that I'm pretty certain that Violet is supposed to be in love with Matthew, but Connor has sold his soul for his finance bro life and for Violet being in love with him instead, just because their relationship does not seem that realistic, and Connor being a finance bro and the whole of hell being set up as if it was like an investment bank just kind of raises red flags. You can sit there if you want. Shall I move this Kindle out of the way so you can sit down? Oh, and the microphone bag. This isn't very good. This is more cat shenanigans. So Gus is going to spend the next 10 minutes deciding whether he wants to sit down. But, oh no, he's sitting now. That's nice for him. Okie doke. So, you guys can't see him, which sucks for you. Matthew's now, you know, he's living out with Alex. He's much more immersed into the supernatural world because he's working and training with the Hunt, with Orion. Orion is the like lord of the Hunt, which means that he's like in charge of the force of Nephilim that kind of protects the human world from supernatural threats. We start the book with a training session basically with the Hunt, and it seems that the Hunt has massively expanded. We've got a load of new Nephilim on board, who are all stronger than Alex. Alex is not particularly strong. He's got other strengths. He's very clever, very creative, very funny, fantastic psychic material. So we've got another bunch of new Nephilim that have joined the Hunt. Matthew's still the only human. I mean, he's got Fae blood, his dad is Fae, but he's like the only mostly human person of the Hunt. And during a hunt, this training session, Orion is approached with a message that there's going to be a constellation congregation, and that one of the main topics of discussion is going to be whether Orion should have been allowed to reform the hunt, and whether Orion should have been allowed to invite humans to join the hunt. So basically everything that's going on with Matt is being dredged up by the thingamajigs, by the constellations, of which Orion is one. This book teaches you a lot more about the constellations. There's also the other factor in this book, which is, well, there's two other factors, I guess. One is that the Fae are asking to be readmitted to the Constellation Congregation. I believe from memory that they were thrown out because the previous Queen of the Fae, Queen or King of the Fae, had betrayed Orion. So, and because he betrayed Orion, and he wouldn't give Orion the spear or that St. George used to kill the dragon in the stories, the hunt were all killed by dragons, and the Fae were knocked out of the Constellation Congregation, and so were the dragons. The dragons were also shut out, and now it's been a few hundred years. The dragons and the Fae are asking to be reinstated, and a lot of this is kind of engineered to make Orion angry enough that the constellations who don't like him will have an excuse to permanently get rid of him, to get a new star of the hunt. So really interesting setup, and I really liked the idea that this was backed. The Constellation Congregation was hiding in plain sight with a sci-fi convention, or like sci-fi and fantasy convention. It feels like it was kind of like Comic-Con. Do you want to sit up there now? That's a good place because you're in frame. Stay there. So he's watching the bin men who are currently picking up our recycling outside. So yeah, really good setup. And one of the things that I liked was that the real world convention, the science fiction and fantasy convention, also gives a window for us to have Connor and Violet back in the book. I do really feel like I would like more Connor and Violet, mostly so I can get my theory proven right, because I'm sure it's right. And I really like the tension that you have with Violet. And it's very interesting to see the tension with Violet between Violet and the fairy princess that Matthew is betrothed to. We also get to spend a bit more time with Fae characters in our world. So I won't mention, but two of the fairy, well, actually, are all four of the fairy princesses in this one? Yeah, they are actually. Well, in some capacity. The fairy princesses are in this one. Robin's in this one. So yeah, good to see them in the real world, which I thought was quite fun. The one fairy princess that Matthew is betrothed to, he's also trying to kind of build a bond and a relationship with. So like one of the early things that happens in the book is that they go out on a date to a fancy restaurant, which was fun. The Dragon Dons are a new... They've been mentioned a few times. Andrew Givler has started doing this thing that Jim Butcher does in Dresden Files, which is where he'll reference stuff that becomes important in later books. And the Dragon Dons are referenced all the way back in book 1. So the Dragon Dons are referenced as having killed the hunt and also providing the security for Lazarus, who his lab was burned down by the hunt in book 1. And so you've got the Dragon Dons have reasons to dislike the hunt. They have reasons to dislike Matthew specifically because he did the burning down. They have reasons to dislike Orion because he defeated and trapped their leader, who was called Draco, who was the only one of them that could still turn into a dragon, who had enough like dragon blood in him. They also look kind of dragony, which helps them fit in at the sci-fi fantasy convention. but does make them a little bit of an eyesore in the rest of the book, in the rest of the world. Really interesting to see how Andrew Givler has set us up with these fantasy characters and creatures and thought about how they fit into the real world, or not, as the case may be, in fact, with the Dragon Dons, where people just kind of assume that they're wearing masks. So yeah, I really enjoyed the kind of expansion of the world, the building on the previous books. I think that that's something that Givler is really smart at. He's able to build on these previous books and be like, well, this has happened before, so the logical progression would be this. I really like also that he's not afraid to change up the status quo. So in, like, you know, book 1 and 2, the love interest, I guess, kind of ostensibly is Violet, but she's very much takes a back seat to the new fairy princess who Matt is betrothed to in book 3. Well, betrothed to in book 2, now dating in book 3. It's very interesting to see the, like, fairy princess become jealous of the human who isn't even dating Matthew, is actually just engaged to his best friend. But I guess that doesn't really matter if you're a fairy. Sorry, itchy eye here. Anyway, so yeah, I really enjoyed that. The world building, I liked the character growth that we see from Matt, and we actually see a bit more from Alex again this time. So Alex has been more of a background character in books 2 and 3 than he was in book 1, but we do get a few kind of life changes for Alex. Alex gets a girlfriend, and then he is also having to deal a lot with the issues of, you know, being part of the supernatural world but still kind of pushed to the fringes because his Nephilim blood is quite weak in terms of it, like in relation to a lot of the other characters. We also meet we meet a load of the constellations, and we meet a load of the characters from Greek mythology, like the Odyssey. So that was really fun. I don't know much about Greek myth, I'll be honest with you. I'm like the only person who hasn't read that Neil Gaiman book about mythology that Stephen Fry narrated, or maybe Stephen Fry wrote it, and I'm mixing it up with the Norse mythology book by Neil Gaiman. Anyway, I'm not going to read any Neil Gaiman books ever again, so whatevs. Yeah, so I haven't read the Greek mythology books that are going around, nor am I a big Greek mythology or mythology retelling person in general. I feel like, you know, tell your own story. However, yeah, so yeah, I'm not a big fan of the that Greek stuff, and I studied Roman stuff in school, not Greek stuff, when it came to classics. So yeah, unfortunately, I have basically no knowledge of any of the Greek stuff. So some of the references were going over my head, and I was like, oh, I think I remember who this person is, or this person is. I'm like, ah, Odysseus, right? He's the Odyssey guy. So, you know, things like that. And I think, oh wait, are they doing Golden Fleece? Are they doing Jason and the Argonauts? I think they might be. I think that might be one of the references. Anyway, if you like Greek mythology, there's a little bit of that smattered around this book, and I think it's well done. I really liked the idea of the constellation, so that, you know, people do impressive things in life and then they get to be recognized as constellations. And Matt actually has found a loophole in his soul fraud contract that says that if he's able to do an impossible task, which has to be provided to him by someone of a decent level of importance, luckily Matt knows a few of those people, he can get out of his soul frauding. So that does seem like it's a fairly reasonable thing for him to do in the near future. I actually am recording this before I've read the next book. So this is the first time I've recorded a review for a deck collection book where I haven't already read the next one. Part of that is because I have been focusing on other books, and I finally got to some books that have audio books, whereas I've been listening to the deck collection books mostly while I've been reading books that don't have audio. I've been listening to them via the audiobooks. I think in fact for Star Summit, I think it's the first deck collection book that I did not even crack the cover of the eyeball reading book, the Kindle copy that I have. I literally just listened to it. So yeah, we've got all the constellations. So we've got some really interesting stuff going on with Polaris, who is the North Star, who's the like de facto head of the constellations. And you've got all these minor constellations like Cassiopeia, who we met in book 1. You've got Orion, who's one of their major constellations. So yeah, lots going on in this book that I really enjoyed. And the future prospects of what we can get from this world, I think are really strong. Matt being able to do an impossible task sounds like something I'd be really interested in and would like to see. So, who is this book for? Really, anyone who's read the first 2 and thought they were good. It's just as good as the first 2. I still think Soul Fraud might be my favourite, although this Star Summit might be the best, I guess. I don't know. I think there's the new factor for Soul Fraud, where I just really enjoyed finding that new series, a new urban fantasy series, because I love Dresden Files, and finding a new series with that sort of vibe was really cool. However, book 2 I thought was basically as good, but just very, I enjoyed it at the same level, but I was like, oh, I think the setting was a bit more limiting. And the third one doesn't really have the setting limitation stuff. It's all set in our world, which I really enjoyed. But I think, yeah, the novelness of book 1 probably really sold it for me. Let's talk about ratings. So I also gave this one a 4 out of 5. I've given all 3 books a 4 out of 5, I think. Maybe I gave Soul Fraud a 5 out of 5. But they're all really strong books. And if you are looking for something to replace something like Dresden Files as your palette cleanser, I would highly recommend them. And especially the audiobooks. They're really easy listens that I really enjoyed. I listened to a huge chunk of Star Summit like while doing a jigsaw, and it was just a lovely relaxing time. So if you're the kind of person who enjoys audiobooks, you absolutely owe it yourself to give these a crack. They aren't the world's longest audiobooks. They're like, 12 or 13 hours. So different value for money in terms of prospect, different prospect in terms of value for money than something like Stormlight Archive, where the books are like 50 hours long or whatever. However, I do think they're worth the time. I think they're worth the Audible credit, and I think they're worth a listen. And if you pick up the Kindle copies, which are pretty reasonably priced, you can get discounts on the Audible versions. So if you're interested in doing something like that, then that's a great option. Next up, I will be reading Death Tax. I said I haven't listened to it. I have listened to a couple of chapters, but literally 2, I think, when I was like, oh, I should start the next audiobook, but then realised that my brain was a bit too frazzled to be paying attention. So I will probably reread those. But I'll be starting that pretty soon, because I'm having a great time with the deck collection. My plan actually, so I'm reading a Wheel of Time book at the moment, but when I finish that Wheel of Time book, my plan is to go straight into Death Tax, which is the 4th deck collection book. And then I'll be fully up to date, and I'll have to wait until Andrew writes another one, which will be very disappointing. I know he's watched a couple of these videos. It'd be great to have you on the channel, Andrew, if you're watching this one. Maybe we could do a little author interview. That'd be a lot of fun. And we'll definitely be checking out your progression fantasy book that you mentioned in one of your videos that you'll be publishing at some point next year. So that'll be exciting. In terms of other reviews, next Monday you can look forward to the review for Return to Edan, possibly my book of the year by Philip Chase. And you can also, after that one, look forward to some Wheel of Time content. I know it's been a while on the channel, and there's actually quite a lot of Wheel of Time stuff planned coming up. So I hope that you are into that series, as that's what you'll be getting. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have, why not give it a like? And if you want to chat about this book or any other books in this series, please drop down below into the comments and have a chat with me there. Although please don't spoil Death Tax, I haven't read it yet. I'm reading it soon though. And if you haven't subscribed, then please do subscribe. Every little subscription helps, and I would love to have you as a part of my little community. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll speak to you tomorrow.